I'm Matt Stultz. And
I'm Mandy Stultz.
So one of my passions as a maker is actually making things that make things. This really led me into the digital fabrication world, 3D printing, CNC machines, laser cutters, things like that. But I actually really enjoy making my own 3D printers, whether those are kits or designing custom 3D printers and things like that. And so that's something I get really excited about because I want to create tools that will also then help other people make the things that they're excited about, whether those are more tools or just some random object. And I think there's a lot that can be done in that, and there's still a lot to go. While 3D printers have become something that has been fairly well played out in some terms, there's still a lot of research, there's still a lot of work to be done to make it even better.
Okay, and my passion, I would say, is more along the lines of fiber art. I really like working with natural materials and making something out of a pile of fluff. I can really get into that, and being able to turn that into, it's a multi-stage process, right? You've got your pile of fluff, you can move that into spun yarn, which you can then weave into something wonderful to keep someone warm, or you can knit it or crochet it, and needle felting as well, a creation of tiny objects from said pile of fluff.
Yeah. And what do you think makes a maker? That's the big question.
That's the question,
right? I think we're all makers, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone's a maker, whether they realize it or not.
Mm-hmm.
It just matters how much you're actually practicing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, part of being a maker is actually, getting your hands dirty,
Mm-hmm.
and making stuff.
Right.
But, whether that's making dinner and being super passionate about that,
Mm-hmm.
or if that's sitting down and creating your own printed circuit boards and robots and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter. Just make something.
Right, and it doesn't have to be siloed into any one particular thing, right?
Right.
You don't have to be into electronics. You don't have to be into woodworking. Like you said, you can just hop in somewhere and make dinner, and that's still making. Or you can take something, and I'm thinking about Penelope. You can take something that it's already a thing and give it its own personality, or take it places and take pictures of things, or just take something that already is and build upon it, and even that is making.
Right. And especially being involved in a makerspace, a lot of people come in and tour our space and they're like, oh, this looks really interesting, but I don't really know about 3D printing, so I don't feel like I would fit in here. And we try to tell them that actually is really counterintuitive to what we're trying to do here. Building communities of diverse backgrounds and skill sets and things like that we actually would prefer to have more people come in who don't know necessarily about 3D printing or digital fabrication or anything that any of us know about, because then they bring in their skill sets. And the more skills we all have within the space, the more interesting things we can make.
Right, we're making makers.
Making makers.
Yeah, so where should people start as a maker?
Getting started as a maker.
Getting started as a maker, I think you find your passion first, find the thing that you really like to do, and use that as your jumping off point. We talked about cooking.
Right.
Think about your ingredients. Everyone goes to the grocery store. Look at what's around you, see what's available to use. Get into cookbooks, libraries. Even if you don't necessarily want to walk down to your bookstore, borrow some books, borrow some cookbooks from your friends and your neighbors, and get started that way. In the internet, everything is there at your fingertips to.
I, of course, can't help but put the shameless plug in of, Make Magazine has been around for a long time.
Also true. Creating
lots of content. There's lots of things out there that no matter what it is you might be interested in, or you might even find something within our pages that you didn't even know existed and might be the thing that really sparks your creativity.
Mm-hmm. And don't miss the big one here.
The big one.
The big one is getting in touch with your local makerspace.
Yes, get in touch with
Really.
your local makerspace.
Find out who's out there. You might be surprised. There could be a local makerspace right around the corner and you didn't even know. And go talk to those people. There are resources available at your fingertips. Some makerspaces are huge. Some are small, but we're all kind of a collective brain, and maybe if one doesn't necessarily have what you're into, they could put you in touch with someone who is.
Right. yeah, hackerspaces.org and find your local makerspace for sure. So there's plenty of people that, live just down the road from us, and we've been here for years, and they finally Google, makerspace Rhode Island, and then find us, and they're like, I didn't even know. Yeah. So a lot of people kind of do have this barrier of entry of, do I know enough? Am I going to be embarrassed and everything else? And, I understand that. I get why people would be concerned about that, but, every makerspace that I've been a part of or, have been around and everything else, gladly invites people who have no real skill sets and want to learn. But you have to understand that there's a give and take to that. That part of that learning process, it isn't going to be everyone in the space is going to drop everything they're doing and jump to teach you. It's more likely going to be that you're going to learn more by just helping other people with their projects and getting involved, even if that just means that you are an extra set of hands holding two wires while somebody else solders them. In that process, you might learn to solder, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily soldering your project. It might be soldering theirs, but I think people are going to be more ingratiated towards you and be more apt to help you out if you are coming in looking to help others than necessarily how they can help you.
And I would say don't be afraid to ask questions
For
either.
sure.
Any kind of question I know for sure is welcome here.
I get so tired of people coming in and saying, so I have a dumb question. It's
Right.
like, no,
No.
you don't.
No, you don't.
You just
Always.
have a question that, you don't know, and we were all there at some point. So, feel free to ask.
Yeah, that's okay too.
Right. I mean, some of the biggest learning experiences I've had have been because I totally screwed something up, and then that made it so I understood how I screwed it up, and I could then later on do it right.
Right. Like the chair.
Like the chair. Yes.
Yeah. Or with me, like just working with the vinyl cutter, you learn so much by, I didn't set the blade depth correctly.
Right.
And it ripped through the vinyl, and now I have to go back and reset it, but then you remember next time.
Yeah. For sure. That's a open-ended question. Hard question, open-ended.
I'm gonna dip my toe into this one. Just a little bit. Ladies. Yes, ladies. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I think sometimes there's a little bit of a holdback, maybe because you're not sure about the equipment, or you're not sure about the group itself, or I don't know. It's a really tough one to explain, but I feel like there's some hesitation there. Don't be afraid to get integrated into a hackerspace, and the all lady hackerspaces that's great. But if you don't have one of them near you, don't be afraid to stop into the one that is near you, and see if you like it, and see if it's a place that you could fit nicely, because any hackerspace that I have been to as a woman, I have never not felt like I was at home.
Right.
I've always felt very accepted, and everyone was very accommodating to answer my questions and to help me with things, and in turn I was able to help them with things, and I've never felt not welcomed. So I think that's...
Yeah, and don't take the social awkwardness of some hackerspace members as that they might have a problem with you.
Right. No, we're all so different.
Yeah, we're all so different.
We're learning
Sometimes, these spaces do draw personalities that are slightly awkward and don't always necessarily have put their best foot forward, especially when the opposite sex is involved. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. They're just maybe awkward and inexperienced.
We all have different ways of communicating.
Right.
When you're one big group, you figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, there's the advertising side, right?
There is the advertising
how
side.
are you spreading the word?
Yeah, how do you
of your
spread
space?
the word and get the best results
Right.
from that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of these kind of conversations going on in the non thing and everything else. But yeah, I would love to know how other spaces are spreading the word about themselves within their community. We have our own methods, and I have methods that you know, we worked on in previous spaces that we've been involved with and things like that. But, you know, I think everyone has different ways that they do this, and, you know, the more we can spread that knowledge of, you know, how do we make the general public aware that makerspaces exist and what they can offer to a community, I think is really important.